Today is the 6th of August, 2026, 10 a.m. CET and 4 p.m. Manila time. Today, we talk about strong manufacturing recovery in ASEAN, US plans to block China equipment for data centers, the larger story behind the Michigan Democratic primaries, and Wall Street's renewed cheer over the Strait of Hormuz.
Hello to our listeners. I'm Mel Lopez, Chief Economist for ASEAN.
And I'm Peter Lundgreen, the founding CEO of Lundgreen's Capital.
This is Sound Economies with Mel and Peter, a weekly East Meets West podcast by Lundgreen's Investor Insights. Join us as we analyze developments in major economies and financial markets globally.
Hello to our audience, and hi, Peter. It's nice to see that you're back from vacation, although it is a working vacation.
Yeah, it's always good to be back in the office, and as you said, it's busy times, but it's also nice to work out of the office. So it's fine. It's all good. We're happy.
Mhm.
Investors are active. The market is interesting, so all is good. And yeah, so we just move on and continue with the business as usual.
Yes.
How's things in your end, Mel?
Well, we are in the middle of preparations for exciting new things for the quarter. We have an upcoming magazine real soon. We will be looking at global developments, and of course, it would be no surprise to expect that we would be explaining a lot about how the world is coping with the higher oil prices. So watch out for that. And also, an exciting webinar is coming up really soon. We are resuming our quarterly China webinar on the 19th of August. So that's 2 Wednesdays from now. That is 3 p.m. CET, 9 a.m. New York time, 9 p.m. Manila time. And we will be talking about how our Lundgreen's Invest China Fund performed in the last quarter, as well as how AI has been shaping China's stock markets as of late. So that's exciting, and we hope you can join us. The details are on our website at lundgreensinvest.com. So yeah, that's what's been keeping the Manila team busy in the last few days. And actually, we do have a lot to talk about today, Peter. I will start, of course, in my home base of Southeast Asia. Always the exciting region among those that we
Yeah.
monitor, and really fresh numbers coming out from S&P Global regarding the manufacturing PMI for July, and it is quite a story. We did see that most of the PMI numbers went up from June to July, but we do note that the ASEAN numbers have spiked a big way compared to Eurozone, compared to the US. So from 50.5, so that's a positive development. In June, we do see now that 52.8 PMI reading for July. So that is a
Yeah.
pretty strong rebound, especially in the context of the past 5 months being very nervous, being quite delicate because of the global oil supply shock.
Mhm.
Um, New orders and output are both up, which is a good sign, even if input prices are a bit higher due to, yes, again, the US Iran conflict. This is much larger than the improvements we've seen in the Eurozone manufacturing figures. And we do also see that US numbers were steady. So the optimism really is towards the ASEAN region. We've seen that time and again. And here is another uh, data point that proves that there's really the activity is really robust here in this part of the world, and
Mhm.
it is an exciting time. The growth is bustling, although of course the numbers still reflect some uncertainty and some nervousness. It's still performing much better than its peers. Even China saw a decline in the PMI data, although it's still in expansion territory. So I think the problem in China is really more domestic demand than external. But in Southeast Asia, both engines are running really well. So demand is up, exports are up, and employment is also rising after months of uncertainty. So we like to see these numbers, and it is encouraging.
Yeah, it's super numbers, and a true positive surprise that
Mhm.
expectations are so strong. It's really good. Um, as you say, it supports our picture of Southeast Asia as a place to be, even short term to long term. And again, it is sort of decoupling a bit from rest of the world.
Mhm.
It gets probably more and more also sort of regional Southeast Asia fuel, and the growth from the region simply generates more growth in the region. And this is a sign that the economies have reached a level where there's a completely different self-sustainability. And we should not forget that the households in Southeast
Mhm.
Asia, they start to have savings. So this is people are much better off than let's say 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So there's a lot of comfort and more equity and more as a real equity, money equity, also in the private sector, household sector. So this is it's simply sort of now we can't project the, the whole next 10 years on just this very good surprise number from June to July. But after all, it is actually noteworthy. So yes, very encouraging and again, worth for investors to keep an eye on to see, okay, is this do as a will PMI stay in
Mhm.
this really good territory, part of the territory? Again, above 50, as you say,
Yes.
is growth, indicates growth, and the higher it gets, the stronger the growth expectations are. And a number like 52.5 is actually it's not bad at all.
Mhm.
It's really so interesting, really interesting, and extremely interesting for investors. We can
It's
only
also worth noting, Peter, that this is already the 5 month high. So 5 months ago was exactly the pre-war, the pre-US Iran war number.
yeah, yeah,
So if it's any indication, they are right back right where they started before the whole oil crisis occurred. So it is quite a fast turnaround as far as nervousness, as far as production are concerned. So it is definitely encouraging. We move on, Peter, to
yeah.
our next door neighbor, so to say. It's China, of course, the second
Mhm.
largest economy in the world, and we're very interested in how China's markets and China's economy develops. And
Mhm.
recently, we have been talking about AI being the new battleground between US and China. And here's another development. There has been reports that the US is now looking to restrict the use of China-made technology that powers data centers. So
Mhm.
the technology is called transceivers. So transceivers like receivers.
Mhm.
These are what allows a data center to communicate and exchange information with other data centers globally, using fiber optic cables and really high speed connections. They are looking at restricting Chinese exports of these materials when China is actually the biggest producer currently of this equipment. Again, citing national security, this is not the first time we've seen it. We've seen them battle through semiconductors and very recently as well, humanoid robots. And now this transceivers are gaining attention among US policymakers, and they're trying to ramp up the security concern protocols by looking at this ban. And it is at the core of the global rapid AI development. And they're saying, of course, it's to protect against data theft, against malware, cybersecurity. It will limit China's access if approved, but at the same time, it will also indirectly curtail China's dominance in the AI technology space. Two-thirds of global producers are from China of this equipment, so that's how fast they have cornered this part of the market. Um,
Yeah.
this has kind of shown up in the stock prices of these companies in China, and of course boosted the share prices of the American counterparts, because of course it will boost domestic demand for transceivers if this policy actually comes to light, comes true. But actually, there has been some recovery already. So day to day wise, there has been some 2 to 3% decline in share prices of companies like Zongzi, Hisense. So they're the ones making these types of equipment. But now the bigger movers are actually not that, but rather strong corporate earnings in China, as well as optimism regarding the US Iran developments in negotiations. There has been a decline in oil prices as of the last 2 weeks, and that has been really the driver in sentiment for Chinese equities, as well as strong developments in their own homegrown AI technology. So apart from DeepSeek, which has been the headline maker since last year, Alibaba's Quen AI has also been really developing rapidly. Um, they're also making AI access cheaper in China and maybe the rest of the world soon enough. So that has been the focal point more than this potential US policy. And I think it's indicative of how strong the Chinese market is, to the point that it can prop itself up. Actually, China stocks have been up the last few days already, regardless of this piece of news. So that it shows that there is really a strong push domestically. It's not yet at its peak because it remains quite tentative, quite soft over the property sector crisis that has been lasting. But there is really that growth and that momentum that can be tapped domestically.
It's again, we've touched it several times, many times, I don't know. But AI is just such a big theme, of course, also among investors, tech companies, and this, oh, how should we call it? It's a partial and sort of an administrative war between US and China. Is it important? Yeah, it is important because the tech sector, particularly the AI sector, is volatile already
Mm-hmm.
when investing into the shares. And this is, of course, generating volatility. All these kinds of um, chit-chat wars between the US and China is affecting all of a sudden, and it's sort of out of the blue. It's simply things we can't forecast. What is the consequence? The consequence is that there should be the risk premium for investing into AI should be higher, or should be higher than just that's what the current volatility actually sort of should argue for. So these are it's a completely, of course, interesting development. It also gives them insight about the
Mm-hmm.
size of the market and how important different parts of the whole product chain is. And
Right.
it's impressive how Chinese companies they continue to really to size the market, as really to take enormous market share. And it underlines again that the AI sector in China is extremely forceful, as there are only two countries in the world, and that is US and China. And again, for investors making assessments of the price of AI-related companies in different directions, where are the expensive companies and where are the cheap companies? And you still have better opportunities to find some Chinese companies that are lower priced. Not that they are low priced, but on a relative scene,
On a relative
they would be
perspective,
lower
yeah.
lower priced. Yes. So that is the sort of the ongoing takeaways. Yeah, but of course we give it attention because it's a big thing. It's a big development, and also it's a big battle between US and China. Fascinating and interesting. And again, it's also for investors, it's hard to neglect the sector.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that's also a challenge. Yeah. So yeah, that's good. Anyway,
Let's cross over, Peter, to the West. We do have some exciting news about the upcoming elections in the US, Peter.
yes, and of course, it's not our podcast is not sort of a political session, but of course, in the financial markets, we now and then need to have a look what is going on the political scene. They live side by side, like on the piano. It's two powerful elements in the society. We just notice. Let's put it this way: we don't project in Michigan here yesterday in the Democratic
Right.
Senate's primary election. Also, the election within the Democratic Party about who's running for a Senate seat on behalf of the Democrats. The winner is Mr. Abdul El Sayed. And wisely enough, he is not trying to market himself as a socialist. But a part of the Democratic camp, also nationwide, and that is actually the left wing part of the Democrats, they are celebrating his victory. And they are celebrating it as a, how say, also socialist victory within the Democratic Party. Now, and that is interesting. That is really, really interesting, that part, because it will probably not be the case how Mr. Abdul El Sayed is sort of trying to label himself. It is 100% sure that the Republicans, they will label him as a heavy socialist, and they will label him that all across whole US. And of course, what they want to achieve is to say that Democratic Party is turning even more left, and that will help. Trump in the midterm elections, probably, and it will for sure help maybe J.D. Vance if he would be the next Republican candidate for president. Yeah. And again, Mr. Abdul El Sayed, regardless of what he says, is how he will be seen in the US as how people simply think about him and not what he is really saying himself. And why is this so important? Yeah, we have seen because it's number two, this kind of move after the New York mayor changed seat. And we assume here at Lundgreen, and in our small quick analysis, saying, okay, the majority of US voters, they are simply not socialists. And this, it can be that a big part of the Republican voters actually are unhappy with, in particular, the MAGA part of the Republican Party, as the sort of the right wing. Yeah. But even Democrat voters, they will be scared away if they all of a sudden have the impression that they are voting for a socialist party. Now, and this is one of it'll be, I think, a major factor. If is it fair or not? Yeah, well, that fairness doesn't really belong into politics. Yeah, as this is how the political world works. So there'll be a lot of things going on there in that direction. And this is, of course, why we give it attention. Because, as mentioned, it is solely a internal democratic primary election about who's candidating. But it will be this will be used politically on a nationwide scale is our sort of expectation. And yeah, so it's just a small piece of a political happening, uh, that actually can mean a lot more. So it's worth to keep an eye on. First of all, what happens in other elections within the Democratic Party, and also very importantly, how is this used by the Republicans? So extremely interesting, very interesting. Yeah, and
We are a few months away from the general election in the US. And
yeah,
of course, Michigan is just one of 50 states. But what we're really looking out for in the bigger picture is how the Congress would shape up to look like. Will
mm,
it be Republican dominated, or will this primary election results suddenly create or make Michigan a Democrat state? It's been known to be a swing state, more of like
yeah,
a determinant of where it will go, left or right. And
yeah,
this could be one of many we're about to see, because more and more primaries will be happening. And if
yeah,
it does replicate in other swing states,
mm,
or maybe even surprise in some red states, then it could be indicative of how policies in the next half of the Trump administration will come out. And of course, it's an exciting time, to say the least, as far as watching the US is concerned. We have
mm,
seen a very shall we say, temperamental past 2 years under Trump,
mm.
and maybe this could spell the difference, or maybe not. So that's a very exciting elections that we're looking out for. So please expect more of that in the next episodes as things unfold.
Yeah, in particular, if we have these sort of what could be really forced into to change the direction of people's perception
Mhm.
of the Democratic Party. But let's see, it'll be interesting. We're there.
Let's look now, Peter, to the markets.
Mm,
Surprisingly, the past few days or weeks have been very upbeat for stocks, especially for uh, US stocks, Asia stocks. Despite some, two steps forward, one step back in the discussions between US and Iran, there has been what they call a partial reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, and that has, of course, sent stocks higher. But although we can also say from the last 5 months that they could easily walk back on that discussions overnight.
nothing is certain. That is the only certain things we can say. But anyway, it was interesting, and it's just sort of a momentum observation of the markets. But momentum observations are of course extremely important when trying to judge the next 5 or 10% in the stock market. This, as you say, it's taken very positive. In particular, Wall Street has been upbeat in with the outlook to some certain a certain agreement at some level, but at least an agreement between U.S. and Iran that could open up for the Hormuz Strait, and that's basically the key. Yeah? And the impressive thing is, after all, that this is the second celebration of the opening of the Strait of Hormuz on Wall Street. And it's actually celebrated so well that we're seeing new highs on S&P and Dow Jones. Yeah. And despite, there's no surprise that the markets are reacting positive on these news. But we had a celebration already once, and now now Wall Street is celebrating once more, and nothing wrong in that. But how do we translate that into momentum or to reading the market? And that is actually that the markets seems to have a pretty good base. As it is, there is still, one could say, okay, it's a peak, it's overvalued, and now it's just celebrating, and then everything will go down for another 15%. It's just not how we see it. It seems to be that the base seems to be a bit more solid than such, and actually the underlying way or the underlying momentum is still positive, and also sort of we've seen how the days with sell-offs have been absorbed very quickly, also very fast, and this indicates for us it's actually the overweight is positive and it seems still pretty okay solid. Yeah. So this is how we judge the reactions. Still, we are impressed about sort of how many times the same news can be celebrated. But we've seen it before in the market, and this is only okay. So, so yeah,
Let's look at our global outlook, Peter. Do we share the same cheerful celebratory mood that the markets, or Wall Street has been having in the past few weeks? For Asia, let me start with here. It is pretty cheery, despite the rainy weather. For example, here in Manila, there is still that sunshine, at least now figuratively. The sunshine is still here. Some interruptions in growth due to higher inflation in the past few months. But like the PMI numbers that we discussed earlier, there has been a quick recovery, quicker than the rest of the world, is what we're seeing. And there is this stronger capability to afford the higher prices. And of course, that is encouraging for the market.
of course, we see no reason to change our predominantly sunshine outlook.
Mm-hmm.
We have mentioned a bit earlier, like past couple of podcasts, we are entering August. It is holiday season in the financial markets. Markets are thinner. As we also touched base on today on the AI chit-chat between US and China can generate sudden volatility that we are fully aware of that is risk during August, and we also expect just swings to be there that not necessarily can be explained. But of course, we do still see, also based on this conversation today, that there's no weight of sunshine. The clouds on the horizons are surely there because they are there. It's a bit more structural, a bit more long term. But it's how we see it. And so we like still overweight of risk. That will be the wrong time to reduce that further. We see higher rates, so we're still happy with as a short duration, but we like credit risk, particularly emerging market credit risk. And then we also, as usual, like non-listed companies, particularly in Europe, where we see the best way to gain from the European companies actually is to be non-listed. So yeah, so we are quite happy actually on sort of today's basis. Yeah. So yeah.
That's all we have for this episode. We'll be back for the next. Thank you, Peter, and thank you to our audience.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you for tuning in. As always, we keep a watchful eye on market shakers and movers. Catch the next episode of Sound Economies with Mel and Peter, a podcast by Lundgreen's Investor Insights. Available on Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Lundgreen's Invest has secured a historic quadruple exit for its high-tech defense fund. Following the sale of 4 investments to the Danish defense company Omni Capabilities, the fund's value jumped by as much as 40% in just one day. The good news? This evergreen fund is officially open to new investors with an exit possibility every 6 months. Visit lundgreensinvest.com to know more about this co-investment opportunity.
Lundgreen's Capital has been in the business of investment advisory and wealth management for over a decade, with our high-performing and multi-awarded funds to show for it. We're taking this to the next level through an IPO in 2 years. Join us in this journey. Visit our website to learn more.